It's been an interesting year in real estate. There's been a couple of changes here or there in the way we do business. And I think it's clear that what's worked in the past isn't necessarily what's going to work as well moving forward. So everybody's scrambling. Yeah, sure, you got to figure out the documentation and all the stuff to actually get to the transaction. But more than that, at a macro level, how does an agent differentiate themselves from the other agents?
Welcome back to Nevada Realtors Today, your place for timely updates on the news and trends that matter to realtors in the Silver State. Now let's join your Nevada Realtors President, Brandon Roberts, and Nevada Realtors CEO, Tiffany Banks, for today's episode of Nevada Realtors Today.
Most of my career has been spent working mostly directly with brokers. So the broker hat is a little bit different than the individual agents, although they're all mostly aligned on where they want to go. As we all know, it's been an interesting year in real estate. There's been a couple of changes here or there in the way we do business. And I think it's clear that what's worked in the past isn't necessarily what's going to work as well moving forward. So everybody's scrambling. Yeah, sure, you got to figure out the documentation and all the stuff to actually get to the transaction. But more than that, at a macro level, how does an agent differentiate themselves from the other agents, which has always been one of the questions. And then even more importantly than that, how do you now justify whatever the commission that you are choosing to charge? How do you justify that? And that's different for everybody. It's different, But if you come into a listing presentation, say, hey, look, you give me your listing, I'm going to put it on the MLS, and I'm going to put a sign in front of the door, and I'm going to do an open house. Ta-da! That's great. That's probably expected. But how is that going to differentiate yourself from literally everybody else in your space? So I think most of the smart agents and brokerages are figuring out kind of that angle. And technology is a part of it. Branding is a part of it. And then the wrapper on top of that is being able to verbalize what your value is. Because if you can't do that well, then you're going to have a hard time charging what you're probably worth, or at least what you think you're worth.
Do you think that the brokers really understand how to convey that message to their agents?
I think most brokerages think they do a good job of helping their agents verbalize their value prop. And some of them do. It's a little bit of a challenge because, agents are 1099 contractors. You can't tell them what to do. And you can...
Right.
You can show them and invite them to trainings and have them have to sign off on something that they got trained, whatever. But at the end of the day, when they're there in front of their client and you're not, how well are they doing? You don't have a way to track the success of it. The best brokerages were doing this long before they had to do it, right? So it's not necessarily if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready kind of scenario. Yeah, I mean, it's probably it's interesting. So from my perspective, you get the whole country. Right now we're talking about Nevada specifically, but there are geo footprints where business is done differently and commissions are different, how they verbalize is different. So I'd be interested to hear your feedback on what you think is happening specifically in your state.
So, I mean, you bring up a good point. It's funny because even if as a broker, trying to teach your agents to present value and all this over the years has been tough because the market's been pretty easy. And you could pretty much get into the business and almost be an order taker. Yeah, you had to give good service and stuff like that, but it wasn't as hard to necessarily get a commission, so to speak. And then when it gets a little tougher, then they start to rely on the broker a little bit more. But I also find that when it gets tougher, they tend to blame the broker for their struggles. So when they're doing great, the broker has nothing to do with it. When they're doing bad, the broker has everything to do with it.
That's a great point. I feel like there's an awful lot of agents changing brokerages now because they think it can't be me. It has to be my brokerage. Maybe that's true sometimes, but probably not true all of the time. And you're exactly right. And again, my background is I was in the mortgage industry for 25 years and loan officers, real estate agents are cut from similar cloth. And there's a time period during the cycle where it's, I don't want to say free money, but certainly easy money. You put a sign on front of the thing, you get multiple offers, it goes over listing, you look like a hero. It's awesome. Great. Everyone's wonderful. Now that things have kind of shifted away from that, it doesn't mean the business is not there to be had, but there is a certain number of agents that got into it thinking it was easy money that are now leaving the industry to go do other things, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think at the end of the day, the professionals, the career professionals that are here to stay, that are already at the top of their game, there's actually going to be more market share for them to pick up. And if we lose all the fractional part-timers, the husband or wife that has a full-time job and they're just doing it for fun and whatever, if we lose all of that, I think this could actually strengthen the industry.
I agree. I do think there's a lot of agents out there that maybe just could be good agents too, that kind of get lost in everything, don't know what to ask, don't know where to go. So I hate to see some of them get out of the business, but overall, it's always been a cyclical kind of business where people are coming in and going out.
So there are a couple, when I do talk to agents, what I push them towards is your broker is going to have some sort of training, right? That's great. They're going to teach you the way they want you to do business. And you went through and got, licensed by the state, and that's great too. But there are certain companies out there like the Ninja Selling Product or Tom Ferry that have a process that they subscribe to that seems to be wildly successful. I'm not an agent. I've never sold real estate, so I can't tell you firsthand, but I have talked to an awful lot of agents that have gone through. Those are just two. There are other ones out there that have gone through it, and their success has drastically improved. So I think that's one of the arrows in the quiver to shoot is like, be able to verbalize your differentiate, your value prop, and then also, read books and go to classes and pick. Maybe you don't do all of it, but if you learn one or two things that you didn't know when you sat down and you spent a 3-day, ninja workshop, that's amazing. That can change your entire business. So that's something they should keep in mind as well.
So I really view you as an industry leader. I don't know if everyone out there does, but what I love most about the content you put out is it's so consistent. The messaging is so on point, and the way you deliver it is in such a way that's you're the one. Actually, when we hired a PR company, they said share 2 LinkedIn accounts that you love to follow. And so yours was one. And they said, what is it about his content? And I just said, every post you put out is so engaging. You're very funny also, but how do you come up with the content you put out? Do you think that helps you differentiate yourself as an industry leader? What does that do for you?
Yeah, thank you for the compliment. And I apologize that your PR people had to watch all my posts. I think the number one thing, regardless, let's go back. You're an agent. So I have a consultancy firm. I work with brokerages. I work with venture capital companies. I work with technology companies. My people are on LinkedIn and other places, but mostly LinkedIn. So me putting stuff on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, although it'd be fun, isn't getting in front of my client base. If you're an agent, you kind of have to know who your architect is. Who are you looking for? You're looking for first-time home buyers. You're looking for luxury move-up people. Doesn't matter. There's no wrong answer. Sure, you'll take anybody, but who are you actually marketing to? And what voice do you need for them? And then go where they are. As you know, I'm 51. I have a Facebook account. My wife's in her 30s, does not have a Facebook account. And my kids make fun of me for having Facebook. So if I'm trying to market to them, I need to go to Instagram or Snapchat or these other things out there. Not my space. So number one, know where you're going, know who you're talking to. Then to your point earlier about why people seem to like my posts is I'm super, super authentic in all of them. And sometimes that means being vulnerable. Sometimes that means being, self-deprecating and showing mistakes. I can find a post every single day. Literally something can happen today that I'm like, oh, that's a good post. And I'll go on my Outlook and I'll be post about an example. I have an Audi, a nice Audi, right? And when I got in there, the guy showed me all these bells and whistles. And I can change the interior lighting to do different things when the car, it was so cool. And the fin goes up and the fin goes down. I'm like, I'm bought, you're sold. Ask me a year later how many times I've changed interior. 0. I don't even use the fin. It just sits in my driveway and depreciates. It was not the best decision. Are you doing that with your technology? Are you getting pitched by somebody that shows you all these bells and whistles that aren't core competence? And you don't have to so as an example, anything that happens during the day can be turned into a post. And then what I find is just like a good comedian, when they say things, you're like, oh yeah, that's happened to me. When I'm honest and about, I got kids and a wife and a mom and dogs, all of that, people resonate with that. What you don't want to do on social media is always post to your listings. Always post your pumpkin pie recipes, and always post that the market's up, the market's down. That's important, and there should be a percentage of that, maybe 30%. But if it's just that, people tune it out. If you mix it up with good stuff and personal stuff and funny stuff and serious stuff, stay away from politics, stay away from religion, stay away all the stuff that you should already know. Nobody cares. Whatever bumper sticker you have on your car, half the people will hate you for it. So don't put a bumper sticker on. Why would you do that? Keep it to yourself. This is not, your private forum. This is a public forum. So those things all together, and if you do that consistently, that's the other part that people forget, is it's easy to post when you think about it today. But can you post today, tomorrow, Wednesday? Can you post when you're on vacation? Can you post when you're not feeling well? Not that you have to post every day, but you do have to post regularly enough that it catches the algorithm of whatever social media you're using so that it shows up to people.
So you don't think, to some people, because I think they think, oh, I don't want to post too much to see, look at me. But you think being consistent in your messaging, putting out something of value consistently is the key.
I think that's a very common thing, is that people, especially if you're not, like, I don't love to be on stage. You don't see me publicly speaking on it at any of the conferences. I'll be in a boardroom. I'll be with a group of 20, 30 people, but I don't want to be on stage. But for me, my posts aren't really about me. So if your posts are about your clientele, the people around you, or sharing things that you learned, then that lands very differently than some of these Instagram accounts that I follow, where it's always about everything perfect. And I'm in Maui and I'm riding a whale and now I've got a Lamborghini. Like that's a lot. I want to see like a real life person. That's going to bring me closer to you, not push me away. This is for brokers too. There's something called a sunk cost fallacy. So sometimes people can get going on something, whether it's social media or technology that they've purchased, or maybe a website that they have created. It's not performing well at all. It's not working. But because they got so much time and effort into it, they're just willing to kind of ride it out. It doesn't make any sense, but it's like this thing that our brains do to ourselves. So like the analogy I like to use is, if you're on a trip, I live in North Carolina and I'm driving to Florida, south, right down the highway, it's Florida. And I look up and it says, welcome to Indiana. Do I keep going? Because I'm like, well, this is the way I'm going. No, absolutely not. I'm trying to get to Florida. I need to do a U-turn. I need to do whatever I need to do to get back on the right highway to get to the place I want to get. So sunk cost fallacy hurts brokerages, spends a lot of money, don't get the results. So I would recommend any agent, because we're getting towards the end of the year, and it's a good time to think about 2025 and to do maybe an audit on A to Z, everything that you're doing activity-wise, everything you're doing technology product-wise, like what's working, what's not working, and be brutally honest, or even have somebody else get involved with you and give you a third-party perspective. Because sometimes you can get attached to things. Be brutally honest about what's working and what's not. And then take, steps to upgrade, change, shift, pivot, whatever you need to do to remove the things that aren't working. Like, it seems so common sense, but I can tell you that a big majority of people don't do it. And then they just rote rehearsal every year. They're like, why aren't I growing? It's because you're using a website from 2003 that has no pay-per-click or SEO on it. Like, we can change that. There are vendors out there that aren't expensive that can drastically improve your lead gen.
It's another thing though, like I experience this as a broker, and even been sitting on the board. A lot of times the association or someone will provide technology, and you go down that path and you launch it, and the majority of the agents don't use it, but the few that do. So sometimes it's hard to pull the plug on something where you've got a good portion of your agents using it.
Yeah, you're stuck, right? Because you can't take things away from somebody that likes it, especially if they're producers and they're vocal, because then that doesn't feel right. But meanwhile, instead of paying for 100 people to use it, you're paying for 100 people for 20 people to use it. So now your ratios are off a bit. And that also goes back to kind of a conversation around every brokerage is different. There are some brokerages that buy technology for everybody, provide it to them, and figure out splits or tech fees or whatever. Some of them don't provide anything, and the agents all go do it on their own. I don't know that there's a right or wrong way to do it. I think everyone has to choose and commit to whatever they're doing. And what's interesting from a tech standpoint is when you go to a broker and you're like, listen, this is an amazing piece of technology. It does all these great things. It's only $1 an agent, or it's free. It's not free. Like the broker has to undo their current solution. They have dev time to get the new solution in.
Mm-hmm.
They have to market to everybody what the solution is.
Mm-hmm.
You have to train all the agents, train all the managers on how to use it. And then you have to hope that it actually gets used. So even if it's free, I'm 6 figures in the hole just in time and bandwidth. So the value prop really has to be concrete, or you have to be in such on fire for your current provider that you just have to do something different and you're forced to make a choice. Otherwise, if it's a lukewarm value prop, no one's going to do it.
Do you think tech is evolving so rapidly, though, that it's like, how do you know? So say you do a yearly audit. So say Brandon's like, I'm going to bring someone in to look at everything that we use here and figure out what works and what doesn't. By the time you implement a new tech, is there going to be a greater, bigger, better, more efficient tech that like he should have waited? Like, how do you know when the right time is to make that shift?
I mean, that's a great question. I feel like it's kind of like trying to time the stock market or interest rates and when you should buy. Who's to know? I just know that things will continue to grow and get better. So if that's the mindset, then you should never buy anything because there's always something better coming at some point. At some point, I just got an iPhone 16, right? Got the new iPhone. Is it drastically better than the 15? Should I have waited till the 17? Maybe. But my old one the battery was bad and I just didn't want to mess with it anymore. So I got an average phone. Fine. So I feel like let's take a step back. Technology is this broad umbrella, but inside of that, what everybody's talking about right now is AI, AI, to the point where it's ad nauseum. Like it's enough. Like, I think, plumbers using AI, like everything can't be. However, if you go back, way back, there are probably agents in this space that were agents before there was internet. And internet came out. They're like, I don't want to use this thing. I know how to do business the way I've always done it. I'm going to use this big book full of listings. And I'm going to like that happened, right? Oh, cell phones. I don't need cell phones. I'm, I don't need Facebook. That's dumb. Use everything. There's something new. People push back because we don't like change. AI is change and AI is scary. It's big and it's moving so quickly that by the minute you think you figure it out, 3 more things have come out and it's overwhelming. However, you don't have the time. And if you care about your business, don't have the right to stick your head in the sand and think it's going to go away because it's not. You're going to get left behind. So my recommendation to agents and or brokerages is try not to get overwhelmed. Find somebody who's an expert in that space to come in and help you digest through all of this sea of AI to figure out 1 or 2 actionable things that you can do right now that you start to incorporate in, that you start to use. Because AI should be used to automate processes and do mundane things. But AI is never going to replace your relationship building ability, your actual relationship with people, the soul of you or your company. It can't replace that. But let it do the extra things. You just got to figure out where those lines are.
Yeah.
What trends are you currently seeing in real estate tech that excites you, besides AI maybe?
This is also kind of from the broker standpoint. But there seems to be 2 schools of thought. One school of thought is an all-in-one A to Z suite offering that is everything from top of funnel lead gen all the way through to CRM, warming those leads up to deals, transaction management, post-closing accounting, and then after closing kind of follow-up. So that's one. The other school of thought is, hey, I don't want to get locked into one company for everything because it's hard to do everything really well. We're going to bolt all these individual pieces in best in class and create this personalized kind of process. The pro on the all-in-one is it's simple. 1 point of contact, you have 1 company, 1 bill, right? The bad thing is that if you don't like 3 of the 5 or 2 of the 5, you're stuck with all of them and you can't parse it out. You have to work with everybody. On the other side, if you do the a la carte item, it's a lot of work to vet them. And then you have to get them to bolt into each other and send data, which can get clunky and get messy. And it can be a little more expensive because you're paying retail for each little piece. But also, if you don't like this piece or that piece, you can take them out and put 2 new pieces in. And I feel like brokers and or agents go from this side for a while and they're like, I don't like that. And they go over here, like, oh my God, that's a headache. And then you go over here. Like, I don't know that an answer or a solution has come out other than there's always going to be churn of people going back and forth. So that's happening and has been happening. And AI hasn't changed that at all. I feel like this isn't a tech trend, but I think where we're going as an industry, especially now with the commission conversations changing, is if you are a transactional agent and you're just coming in, getting a sale, listing a home, and then you're gone, I think you're leaving money on the table and you're not building your business the way that you should be building your business. I think the agents of the future, and maybe the best agents currently, are seen as an advisor to that person or that family, not just about the transaction, but I'm going after that. Like, I can see a world where, this is Jeff Kennedy's opinion, I don't work for anybody, where agents might also be licensed to be financial advisors or to offer information on insurance, or you're getting older and you want to, I talked to somebody the other day at a company where when people get older and want to move to assisted living, they help clean out the house, get the house ready to sell, put the house in the market, and help the family choose the best fit for that person to go to assisted living. Well, we have a whole silver tsunami coming of people that's going to be like a real thing. Like, those things to me are interesting because you've done the work to get the initial client. So many agents leave that transaction and they go spend money and time trying to find the next transaction. You already have that person. You have their trust. Hopefully you build a relationship. It's not about monetizing it, although that's an element. It's really about providing a service for those people because they don't know where to go. You know what? If I need a plumber, I call my agent. I need a painter, I call my agent. I'm not sure what, like, that's my person for anything related to the home. I think that can get expanded in the future for our states.
That would be, if more agents thought that way, I mean, it would create more of a value proposition for the agent as well, rather than just a transactional agent, I believe, as well.
For sure.
Absolutely. And I think, you think about relationship building, and that is what you are a master at: relationships, relationship building. Is that just something that you were born with? Like, how did you get to the level of, I'd say, skill? Because and you show up authentically, but like, how do you get there? Like, how do you build solid relationships that last year over year, project over project, time after time? I just had a rhyme for you.
I like that. So God didn't give me a very high IQ, but he gave me a fairly decent amount of EQ. I think that, it's great to be smart. Sometimes you can be too smart, especially if you're in sales, and it really isn't about what you know. It's about how can you help. So at the end of the day, everybody I run into, yourself included, and now Brandon, because we're best friends, it's always about how can I bring value. So if Brandon's talking to me and he's like, I got a flat tire the other day and now I have to buy 4 tires because I have a 4-wheel drive, and I know somebody that owns a tire company, it's a friend of mine that I know will take care of them. I'll say, hey, I'm going to send you a client. Brandon, give him a good deal. I'm going to tell Brandon, hey, this guy's going to hook you up. Brandon's happy that he got 4 new tires and this guy got a deal and everybody's good. So as an agent with your agent hat on, so many agents have a commission breath where they only want to talk to you if you're going to list, but that relationship should start way before then. Touching base. This is what's going on in your neighborhood. I know you're not looking to sell, but it's always great to keep up with what the trends are or whatever. If you have a good CRM, which you should have, keeping up with, when they have children are born, when they go to college, when they graduate, like, not that you're being weird and just being like, hey, like, it has to be authentic, but being involved in their life makes that conversation on who to use for their real estate transaction so much easier. That's a non-discussion. Of course, I'm going to use this person. It's been a part of our lives for 6 or 7 years. So I think that's definitely the route.
It's like coming from a place of curiosity, asking questions, actually caring about the other person and what they're saying instead of just looking for how you can get the deal. Yeah. So are there any resources or books or mentors that have significantly impacted your approach to sales and partnership?
Well, I did. I have a lot of like one-liners in my head, but I don't remember who to give credit to for it. But one that pops in is be interested, not interesting necessarily. So if you ask enough questions, everybody has an amazing story. If you ask enough questions, like, you can get into like any scenario and be like super into it. As far as books that I've read, I've gone through some personal leadership courses here in Charlotte, North Carolina, probably 20 years ago, that drastically shifted how I perceive things. But that's not something that people can do that live in Charlotte. I've read all of the Good to Great books and Go Getter and Go Giver and all that stuff. And those are really good. But at the end of the day, I don't know how to say this without it coming off as it's going to come off. I think you're either born with it or you're not. If you're not a people person, don't try to be a people person. If you're super into cats and Dungeons and Dragons and you just want to like be a developer and you like numbers and don't get into real estate, go program something else. You have to like people. You have to like fixing things. You have to really have that empathy. I think you don't have to. I guess you can do anything you want, but you should. Empathy is a big part of it. And I think that being a good listener and asking the right questions opens the doors to building a relationship, which opens the doors to further transactions down the road. Didn't answer your question.
Sort of.
No, that's okay.
No, you did good.
But can you think of a successful partnership that you've had and what has made that partnership successful?
You mean personal partnership or do you mean work partnership?
Any partnership.
Sure.
Or maybe you don't need partnership in your world. Remember, you and you alone are employee of the month every month. So
every single month, I might get employee of the year. We'll see. We'll see what happens at the end of the year. I think that in my 13 years with leading RE, when I was there, VP of Sales of Partnerships, it mostly worked because they gave me the trust to make decisions, like the authority to make decisions, and also the responsibility for the outcome. And because I had both, that worked out well. I think where you can get off times when you have no authority to make decisions, but you have the responsibility for the outcome is where there's some dissonance that happens. And I would say that same thing is, I've been we've been together for 10 years, and same thing. We have respect. We communicate clearly. We give you their chances to try new things. And if something doesn't work, then it doesn't work. Then we learn from it. You can't be so afraid of failure or of messing up that you don't take shots and try new things, because then you get complacent. And if you get complacent, then eventually you'll become irrelevant and you'll die. So I don't mean that personally. I mean it metaphorically. As an example, I forgot who told me this, another one of those things, but the company Apple, when they first came out, their entire pie chart was like the iPod, right? That was their big thing. Everyone wanted the iPod. And then slowly the iPhone came out, and then the iPhone was most of it, and a tiny bit was iPod, and the iPod went away. And now if you look at their pie chart today, it's not iPad. It's now mostly data and games and music and this 3D data goggles, whatever they're doing now. Like none of it's even, the iPhone is a tiny little sliver. They have, as a billion-dollar company, reinvented themselves multiple times just over the last 15 years. So if you're a real estate agent or a broker and you're doing the same thing you did today that you did in 2020, it's fine. It's probably working okay. Can it work better? And then as things change and our environment and our industry changes, are you going to become irrelevant? Are you so afraid of change that you're not going to take chances? Try something. Try a new website. Try creating a mobile app with your face on it and giving it out to people so you can track what houses they look at. There are things out there that are really cool. Try it. It's not like you're paying $100,000 for it. $200 a month or $100 a month. Like, take shots. Be different.
Is there one thing that you've tried recently that you can think of that you're happy that you did? And this is more professional. It doesn't have to be personal.
Well, I was laid off from my job of 13 years unexpectedly at the end of June. And I was faced with a decision to go get a W-2 job, of which I had several options to go do that, or to go out and bet on myself and start my own company. And I chose to go start my own company. And it's been really, really great. It's been a great experience. Will I do this forever? I don't know. Maybe not. But I know that this is a great experience for me. And so putting your agent hat on, you're all self-employed. Like every month you have to reinvent and go get new money. So there's a hustle and a hunger that you have to have, and a little bit of you have to have that drive. But the upside is it's so much freer. You get to choose. You want to work hard. You want to work a little bit less hard. You want to work weekends. You don't want to work weekends. Your kid has something from soccer or piano. You want to go do that. It's so much. For me, I can never go back to being stuck in an office, like 8 to 5. It just isn't for me. I'm not judging it for other people. Could be perfect for them, but for me, it's not. So, you asked, is there a situation where I was happy that I made a decision, like going out on my own, although I didn't choose it, and forced into it, it has been really a blessing.
Yeah. Were you surprised at like your overwhelming support? Because you had overwhelming support. I feel like so many people from everywhere, including me, I was like, wait, how can I hire you to consult with us? I mean, were you surprised at that level of, we want Jeff Kennedy?
Yeah. I mean, when I first found out, it's not funny now. It was funny now, but not then. I was at Disney with my son headed to the park. So I got the call from my boss, who was borderline in tears. She's great. We're still close friends. And she just like, listen, we reorganized. I don't know how to tell you this, but your role's been, eliminated. And so I hung up, and then I had to drive to Disney, where my son was kept ordering like $45 chicken fingers. And I'm like, you better eat all those chicken. Like, it was like a whole, like 3 days of like 100-degree weather and crowds. And like, he's like opening up like a $16 Coca-Cola and like splashing it around. I'm like, bro, that's $16. Like, I didn't know what was going to happen. I was worried about the future, and I couldn't email anybody because it was a weekend. And then the next week was 4th of July. So no one was really working. So I had all this fear. When I finally posted it on like 7th of July, 8th of July, I had 100,000 impressions on LinkedIn. I had probably 30 job offers, like people that I had known casually reached out. And it's not about me per se, like I'm so great. It was that I've built this capital and this brand with these people. Some of it was active where I knew them, we're close friends. Some of it was people I've only talked to once or twice, which tells me they've been watching this whole time. So as a segue over to the hat on, guess what? People are watching you all the time right now. They're watching how you drive. If you drive around with a license plate or a thing on the side and you're cutting people off, people are watching. They're watching you when you're out. They know what you do. They may be friends with you, but they may not use you for real estate because they watch how you do business or how you act as a person. So like, I'm not saying you have to be careful all the time, but I am saying you recognize that when you are self-employed and you're out in the community, you are your own billboard. And hopefully you want business, you like the same success that I had when you put that kind of bat signal out that, hey, I'm open for business.
Yeah, I think that's one thing you've definitely taught me over the years is people are watching. Like a lot of times I'm like, oh, people, like I don't notice what a lot of people are doing, but you've said people watch, people observe, people notice. And I think that, all those things have been, great learning lessons for me. And you've given that advice over the years. So thank you for that.
You bet. I've got 2 older boys. One's 28, one's 25. They're both in this space now. They work for prop tech companies in real estate. And I gave them the advice early on because I live by it, which is I'm always interviewing, whether they know it or not. When I meet somebody or I'm having dinner, having drinks, or we're out, or we're just having a conversation, when I leave that, I want them to think, you know what? Stock went up just a little bit, a couple of dollar deposit in the account. And if I do that enough times, then that counts big. And so as an agent, you may be talking to people that aren't looking to buy, 22 years old, still in college, or, just not actively listening or what. It doesn't matter who it is. It's a good muscle to build that you're always interviewing for them to want to hire you to help them with their biggest transaction probably of their life, which is buying a house. So even if there's no ask, which there shouldn't be an ask most of the time, there's still a positioning of, I want them to leave thinking I'm knowledgeable and I show up and do what I say I'm going to do. And I care and I listen and I'm human. If you do all of those things, it's going to give you a better chance of getting that business.
So how can our listeners find you?
Best way right now is on LinkedIn. I know not everybody loves LinkedIn, but that's where I think they call me a power user. So Jeff Kennedy with Maverix, MAV as in Victor, ERIX Advisory Group. On LinkedIn, I post fairly often. My email address is jeff@Maverix with an X advisory group.com. And if you're a broker and you're interested in doing one of those annual audits and going through and seeing A to Z what's working and what's not, shoot me an email. I'll do it for free. We'll sit down and go through and see what's working and what isn't. And actually, if you're an agent and you're also interested in that, I don't get 20,000 emails, but I'm happy to sit down and spend 15, 20 minutes together and say, okay, again, what are you working with? What do you love? What do you wish was better? What do you hate? Where are the holes that you think you see? We'll go through all that. And then I'll say, look, you thought about these couple of things. And then I'll make an introduction to the company that I think can be the best solution. And that's me doing that tire thing we talked about before, where I'm connecting you with somebody. They're happy, you're happy, and I'm playing in the middle.
Awesome. Well, thanks for doing that exclusive offer for our listeners only. So huge of you. Thanks, Jeff.
You bet. My pleasure.
Brandon, is there anything else?
Well, you've inspired me today to go to LinkedIn more. I've got a profile up there, but I don't do much with it. But now I've got a goal to become a power user. And then one day I can be like you, hopefully. So,
awesome.
With connecting people through other sources rather than just Facebook.
I'll look for you on TikTok too.
I'm not there.
I'm just kidding. All right. Well, listen, this has been great. I appreciate you guys inviting me on. And hopefully we can do this again one day.
Thanks, Jeff. And you are incredible. You know that, but you're absolutely like one of my favorites in this entire industry. You're so trusted. You're so valued, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, guys. See ya.